Hey guys, it's Dasha. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to April's round of A Game of Tomes. If you're not familiar, this is my TBR game inspired by the world of A Song of Ice and Fire. I roll the dice, I move around the board, and I pick what I read each month based off the game. First of all, actually several things. This is my second friggin' time filming this, so I apologize if I seem a little over it. I haven't filmed in a while, so I was like really excited to get back into it yesterday, and then after filming for like 20 minutes, I realized that the camera app closed by itself, so that was fun. Also, it's been a year of A Game of Tomes, which is kind of crazy. I moved into this apartment a little over a year ago, and I started the game very soon after. So yeah, that's super exciting. For those of you who have been here since the beginning, thank you. It warms my heart to know that everyone enjoys the game as much as I enjoy playing it. And those who are new, I hope you enjoy your stay here. If you've never seen a round of this game, I always have the playlist linked down below, which features the first round, which kind of goes over the board and the rules. Nothing's really changed since, other than the number of rolls that I do 4 now, just because I have some different goals this year. But everything else is the same. The game's been the same for a year, and honestly, it's been such a fun time, and I've really enjoyed the experience of picking my TBR this way. It's definitely pushed my choices a little bit, so that's been really fun, and it helped grow my channel, which is really nice. So once again, thank you for those who stuck around. I can't believe it's already been a year of this game. And well, it's time for another round. So before we get into April's round, let's see how I did in March. So this +1 book was my lovely stack. I had Sword of Destiny by Andrzej Sapkowski, which was for the prompt, it was for House Tully, and I'd picked the prompt read a short story collection, which was perfect because that's what this is. I had Ship of Magic by Robin Hobb, and this was for the prompt to read a book with red on the cover. I had Bunny by Mona Awad, and this was for the prompt to read a book with a female main character. I have As I Lay Dying by William Faulkner. This was for the prompt to read a book with a journey or a quest. And finally, I have Bone Shard Daughter by Andrea Stewart, and this was for the prompt to reread a book. And this month I have completed my whole stack, so I will not be taking any punishments, which frankly is pretty crazy considering it took me 2 weeks to read Ship of Magic, and I thought I wouldn't have time for anything else, but my entire TBR is completed. My reading plans in April are pretty consistent with the last couple of months. I am co-hosting 2 read-alongs for fantasy series. If you haven't seen the announcement, I'll link it right up here, but I'm co-hosting read-along for the Life Ship Trader series by Robin Hobb, as well as the Witcher series by Andrzej Sapkowski. So obviously the books for those read-alongs will need to get onto the TBR. Again, since I filmed this before, spoiler alert, of course they do, because I'm amazing. But obviously we need to see what else I'll be reading this month. I am also planning on participating in the Magical Readathon hosted by G over at Book Roast. If you're not familiar with it, I'll link her announcement video down below for the Spring Equinox edition, which takes place over the month of April. And it is loosely, it was originally started to be a Harry Potter readathon, but obviously G does not really want to put her energy and foster a community around that person, so she created her own entire world and story and magical school, and we're going back to school in April, and so all the prompts have to do with classes that you take to get into the career you want. I'll go over my Magical Readathon TBR at the end of this video just to make it kind of easier so I can focus on my Game of Tomes TBR first. So let's get into the rolls for April. So we ended off last month right up there. We were close to the end, which is exciting. That means a big old book haul. And we're gonna go ahead with roll number 1 since we have no punishments. 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we have Lord Tywin. Read a book featuring a strong family dynamic or a found family. And the quote for Lord Tywin is, "Some battles are won with swords and spears, others with quills and ravens." So our first roll got us Lord Tywin, and that's a card we've definitely seen before. It is to pick a book that has a strong family dynamic or maybe a found family trope. So I thought there was really nothing better than The Mad Ship by Robin Hobb. This is the second book in the Life Ship Trader series. As I've said before, we're hosting a read-along for this, so again, check out all the details. There will be a live show for this at the end of the month. But essentially, this follows the Vestrit family and a few other side characters who own a life ship. In this world, there are ships made out of wizard wood, which is a magical kind of wood. If 3 generations successively of a family die on board the ship becomes alive, and it's just a lot easier to navigate. It kind of has a mind of its own, which makes it a bit easier to detect currents and avoid rocks and that kind of stuff. So these ships are extremely valuable. understandable. But the problem is this Vestrit family who owns a life ship has a lot of internal conflict as well as external conflict happening in the town that they live in. Additionally, you follow a pirate who wants to become a pirate king. There's all sorts of politics and family dynamics, which is why I think this is perfect for the prompt, because you're following so many of the family members dealing with so many difficulties. Not only imaginative politics and, you know, fantasy things, but they're also dealing with real life issues that happen between family members and internally. And it's just the most beautiful thing to watch. If you have read the first book already and you missed the live show, I'll have it linked down below. It was over on Beautifully Bookish Bethany's channel, and we had such a good time discussing it. Robin Hobb's books are so big, but there's so much in there to discuss. They're not just big for the sake of it. There's so many characters and there's so many themes and there's just so many things to theorize about and discuss and wonder why it was a certain way, because everything in her books is very, very intentional. So I'm really, really looking forward to reading this next one. I thought Ship of Magic was great. There was just a couple of things that annoyed me a little bit. Like, I know it had to be that long, but it also didn't have to be that long. Like, I was getting kind of frustrated. But overall, I really, really fell in love with some of the characters and just the very real world she's created. So I'm really looking forward to getting into this book and seeing what's happening to everyone. I might be absolutely destroyed, become an emotional wreck. That's okay, I expect at this point. I think Robin Hobb's become my favorite author, so I'm really still looking forward to it, and I can't wait to discuss this book with everyone on the live show. All right, and rule number 2. 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And we've got The Great Sept of Baylor, read a book about or featuring mythology or religion. So our next prompt was The Great Sept of Baylor. If you don't know, in the books and in the show, it is a great church in the middle of King's Landing. It's very important, very grand. So the prompt for this was to read a book that I own that had to do with religion or mythology, that featured it or maybe was explicitly about it, whether real or imagined. So I decided to go with a classic that pops into mind when you think of mythology, Greek mythology, and I'm going to be reading The Odyssey by Homer. I'm nervous. This is a very dense and big book, but I've been kind of itching to read it lately. I'm really enjoying the classics that I have been reading lately, so I'm looking forward to getting more into them, which was one of my goals for the year. I did talk about it at length in my goals video because I do enjoy classics and I really want to just get in the habit of reading through those more dense, more complex works. And I think this is just going to be such a great one right now for the spring. For some reason, it feels like a spring book. I don't know why. I'm not saying it makes sense, but this is the story of Odysseus coming back from the Trojan War, except his journey takes him 10 years. He meets all manner of gods, all manner of people, and it's just a great epic poem filled with everything we love about Greek mythology, so I'm really, really excited. Now, I am putting myself a caveat. If I don't finish this in the month of April, it's not going to count as a failure. I'm telling myself that as long as I start it and get a chunk of the way through and start really getting into it, it's going to count for the TBR. I don't expect myself to finish this in a month. I don't think that's reasonable. Not only is it not realistic, but it's also going to hinder my enjoyment of the book and my understanding of it if I set myself a time limit. So I'm going to go through this slowly, but as long as I start it this month, which I'm planning on, it's going to count as completed, and I'm really quite excited to read it. I was hoping to read the Iliad first, but I know that Emily Wilson is in the process of translating it, and I would have rather waited for her translation. I might still read I have it here, the Robert Fagles translation, because I've heard good things about it and it's a little bit easier than the Alexander Pope translations. But either way, I think I'm just gonna dive on ahead into this one. I think I'll enjoy this one more anyways, and I'm really looking forward to it. I've heard great things about Emily Wilson's translation, and flipping through it, it seems so accessible compared to some of the other ones. So I'm excited, and hopefully we'll start this in April, and it fits perfectly, obviously, for the prompt of mythology because Odysseus meets with all the gods. We're gonna go for roll number 3. Whoops, you can see that's a 6. I'm just gonna grab that. So the start and end counts as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Ooh, a raven card. And we've got to read a book from a worst books video. All right, so our next prompt is to pick a book from a worst books of whatever video. Now, I had, as I mentioned, filmed this video prior and kind of, did a little screen capture on my iPad and explained it all with you, but I'll just insert it here and talk about it. So I had went into my YouTube and typed in worst books of 2021 and scrolled a little bit, and then I decided to click on Miss Books and Lala's video of her worst books of 2021. She went through all of her 1 and 2 star reads, as well as just books that she thought were maybe overhyped, even though they were still decent to her, or maybe books that were just disappointing. And I know that she reads a lot, so my logic was to choose her because there's probably a lot to choose from there. And she also had Atlas 6 in her thumbnail, so I thought that would be good in case I don't find anything else. But luckily, she put Nothing But Blackened Teeth on her list. It wasn't like a least favorite or most disappointing, but it was one of her 1 or 2 star reads. So it was in that video, I'm counting it. This is a horror book about a group of friends that go to Japan for one of their friends' wedding, and they're staying at this old house that has some kind of like history. People say it's haunted, but they're like, you know, we'll be fine. And then shit starts to hit the fan. It's pretty short, and last year everyone was talking about it, but it seems like a lot of people were really disappointed by it. So I've seen this book on a lot of people's videos, to be fair, and I'm still intrigued. I feel like this is one of those books that like most people dislike, but it works for a specific group of people. Like there's a few people that really do like it. So I'm hoping I'm one of those people. I'm still really excited for it. I'm hoping it's gonna work out for me. I still have high hopes. Whether that is stupid is up for debate, but it is a pretty short book, so at least it's not like I'm gonna sink a bunch of time into something I don't enjoy. It's a novella, so I still have high hopes. And it was on a worst books of video, so it counts perfectly for the prompt. And you know what, it could have ended up being a lot worse, like when I did the books I DNF'd video prompt. That was a disaster, but this is fine. Our final roll, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm gonna go. And we've got Westeros, a wild card. Oh, that is absolutely perfect. Our final prompt was a wild card, which is fantastic. I'm gonna take the opportunity to squeeze Blood of Elves in here. This is the first official like book in the main plot series of The Witcher, but it's the 3rd book in the reading order because there are 2 short story collections before this introducing you to the world and characters. If you don't know, The Witcher is a fantasy series. It's about Geralt, who is a monster hunter in this world. He's taken from his parents or orphaned when he's very young and taken to the Witcher stronghold, where he's made to pass all these trials, undergo all these mutations and tests, but it makes him basically superhuman. He can ingest potions and concoctions that humans can't survive, and he basically is able to fight monsters using magic and strength. Beyond that, though, it's not just about Geralt. The strength is all of his, I guess you could almost call it like a found family, all the people that he meets along the way and that become part of his life. You've got Dandelion, who's a bard, and he's a very horny bard, so it's just fun to watch his misadventures. And then you've got Yennefer, who's a sorceress, who is Geralt's love interest, and watching their relationship and dynamic is so interesting. And then you've also got Ciri, who he kind of takes under his wing because by destiny they're supposed to be like, their destinies are like intertwined. It's just so fascinating. I'm really loving the series, honestly. As I mentioned on the channel before, I have played the 3rd video game, Wild Hunt. Probably best game I've ever played. I love it so much. So I was already quite familiar with the world, but it was so nice to get these characters in the last 2 books on paper and see like where it all started. And despite the 90s sexism in this book that's really annoying at times, I think overall the characters and the world shine so brightly that things like the writing kind of don't matter as much. It's also translated, so like that might play a part in it. But overall, I'm excited to actually get to the main story. I've loved the short stories, but I'm excited to see the actual beginning of the overarching plot that takes place over 6 books. So I'm really hyped to get to this one. I'm glad I could get on the TBR, and this is gonna be one of the first books I read because I'm itching to get to it. So those were the 4 books that I'm gonna put on the Game of Tomes TBR. However, we're also gonna make them fit with my Magical Readathon TBR. So I did the character creation back in, was it September? And like throughout the last 6 months or whatever it was. But now it's basically, like I said, you're choosing your career and you're taking classes for your career. So I kind of went back and forth. I think I have decided I'm going to be an archmage, and you need to take 6 classes for that, which isn't too bad in the grand scheme of things. There's one I wanted that had like 8, but I don't know if it's realistic or feasible for me to read 8 books in the month of April. I know sometimes I can read up to that much, but I don't really want to put that on my plate and then fail. I don't like failure. So I decided to go with Archmage. So I'm gonna go over all of the prompts and how I'm gonna fit the books in and what I'm planning on reading. This is gonna be a little bit loose because there's some books that I'm like waiting on at the library, or I might just end up buying outright. Haven't quite decided, might mood read for one of the prompts, but either way, I'm going to try to fulfill all 6 prompts. So the first prompt is alchemy. It is to read a book featuring a romance. So for this, I'm going to go with Madship. There is definitely some relationships and romantic relationships in here. It's not like focused on the romance, but it does feature it. So I'm going to count it for that prompt. The next class is Inscription, and the prompt for that is to read an intimidating book. So of course I'm going to go with the Odyssey because obviously it's a classic, it's ancient, it's big, it's dense, and it's definitely intimidating. Next we have the class Artificery, and the prompt for this is to read a book that's set on Earth. So I'm gonna go with Nothing But Blackened Teeth for this one because it is set in Japan, which is on Earth. The next one I'm struggling a little bit with, so it is Spells and Incantations. And the prompt for this is to read a short story collection or a collection of essays. I very rarely read short story collections or essay collections, but I did find a few things. I went through my nonfiction TBR and there's a couple of books that are like on my radar right now that I might choose for this. I've put a hold in at the library for They Can't Kill Us Until They Kill Us, which is a book about, I believe it is music and like hip hop culture mixed with culture in the US. I'm not 100% sure, but I've just heard really good reviews about this, and for some reason it intrigued me because I really enjoy music and I want to read more books about music and culture and that relationship, so I might read that. The other one I put it on hold at the library, is In Memory of Memory, which is by a Russian woman, if I'm not mistaken, and it's just a series of essays that is about her life and remembering the Soviet Union and her parents. So that's another one that I might read. I also have Trick Mirror by, what's her name, Gia Valentina or something? This one's been going around on TikTok a lot, but it just sounds kind of interesting. I think it's a memoir of self-delusion, or like essays on self-delusion or something, and it's just about like current society and how we view ourselves with the help of social media and current media and the current society and environment, which sounds really, really interesting, but that one I'm having a harder time getting my hands on. I might purchase it, especially since I've completed my board. I can do a little book haul, but I'm also trying to save money, so who knows. I have a few books that I'm interested in. The last one that might work for this prompt that I might do is Inside This Place Not Of It, and it is a set of stories. I guess you could say it is an essay collection or a set of short like personal stories about women in female prisons and their experience, how they got there, what they learned, and you know, their life stories basically, which sounds super interesting. It's probably going to be one of those 4 because like I said, I don't read a lot of short stories and essays, but I definitely want to get into essays especially, so that's going to be my choice and I would really like to get to it. I don't have a lot of nonfiction on this TBR, if any, so it'd be nice to at least read one nonfiction book in the month of April, so it'll probably be one of those 4. The next class is The Art of Illusion, and the prompt for this is to read a book with a trope you like, so I'm going to be using The Witcher to fulfill that prompt. This has the trope of the kind of grumpy mentor that reluctantly takes over and, you know, teaches someone all he knows, and that is Geralt and Ciri's relationship. I'm pretty sure it's going to be featured in this first book. I know that Ciri does play a role in this first book, obviously, because she's the catalyst for the story, her and Geralt, so I'm assuming that trope is going to be present in this book. And then the final prompt is for the class Conjuration. The prompt is to read a book with a light source on the cover, which is honestly harder than I thought it would be. Again, for this, I haven't set anything in stone. I have a couple of nonfiction books that have people with like lights behind them or near them, or like the sun shining down on them, so that could work. And I just whacked myself in the nose. And then I also have, I've been itching to read this one lately because I want to continue with the series, The Great Hunt by Robert Jordan, the second book in the Wheel of Time. There's a light source back here, so I might count this. It's not as chunky as the first one. The first one took me a while to read. There's a lot of fantasy on this list, but at the same time, like, I have a really short novella on this list, so I might be able to squeeze this in. I would love to continue with the series before I forget what happened in the first book, because I read that back in November, so I would like to continue with the series. It's 15 freaking books, so I should get on that. But if I don't get to this, then I would like to maybe get to a nonfiction. Like I said, I have a couple on my shelves that have like light sources on the cover, or if not, I'll find something else, I'm sure. I really want to, that's like the prompt I'm having the most trouble with, surprisingly, but I'm sure I'll find something. I mean, yeah. I'm not really worried, but just I think I'm gonna save that and the short story one for a mood read, or just depending on what I have available, how much time I have, how much brain capacity I have. So those two are left up to mood reads, but I was able to fit all my Game of Tomes books into the prompts for the Magical Readathon, and so there's only 2 left open, which is pretty good for me. So let me know if you've read any of the books on my TBR, or if you have any recommendations for those last 2 prompts, short stories, essay collections, whatever. Also, let me know if you're participating in the Magical Readathon. I love seeing everyone's plans, and like if they're going for the gold, for the big careers with like a ton of prompts to fulfill, or maybe some of the smaller ones so you can mood read. Let me know. Other than that, my social media is linked down below. You guys can come talk to me there. Thank you so much for watching. Sorry for this chaotic mess. I love you. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye.